Okay, so I mean, this week I think Blizzard's got taking some wins. You know, making some good decisions for the player base just as a whole, taking some feedback that players are giving, and acting a little bit faster on it. I would say than they have in the past on some of these things.
I think this is pretty normal.
Okay.
Pretty similar timeline to previous patches. There's 3 big pieces of news, right? The first is already live. It's the Primal Chaos being tradable to your alts. I would compare this to like Cosmic Flux going tradable, Soul Ash, Soul Cinders going tradable, which happened about this time into the patch in those Shadowlands patches as well.
I would contest that, like, with this, about the point that people started complaining about Primal Chaos not being tradable, Blizzard like hammered it, like, and like a week later they made it tradable, whereas in Shadowlands they would give it like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even potentially like a month. But yeah, that's reasonable.
I don't know. My memory is this feels exactly like when I would have expected them to do this based off of existing trends, but maybe it's a little bit earlier.
There's a little bit of friction. The thing that's BOA requires 80 Primal Chaos, and then grants 60 when opened. This is very similar to like the Soul Ash, Soul Cinders kind of situation.
It's actually a little bit harsher. Yeah, you're losing a little bit more in translation of your chaos than you did of those currencies, which I don't think is a big deal. Yeah, I don't think that actually matters too much. But
all right, some other news. And we heard this a little bit earlier today, an hour and a half as of time of recording. Blizzard is deciding to remove the Valor cap. And we will remove the caps on the amounts of Conquest and Valor that can be earned and held by players. They will remain uncapped for the rest of Dragonflight Season 1. As before, we like how in the early seasons, these caps reduce the feeling of being left behind for many players whenever it comes to PvP and Mythic Plus gearing. However, once several weeks have passed, we want to set players free, basically, is what they're saying. And this makes sense, especially with how crafted gear is kind of shaping up this season, that they do let the players effectively have unlimited Valor.
Yeah, my take on this is that it doesn't really matter too much to uncap Valor at this point. Like, so this is the week that we would be getting to 8,250 Valor as the cap. It is now going away, and it is going to be unlimited. My take on it is there's pretty few players that are going to go over that cap and have it be relevant to their character's power level, right? There's going to be a lot of characters that go over that Valor cap, but just don't have any more Valor upgrades because they're full bis and stuff, or their upgrades are only coming from Mythic Raid and from the Great Vault. But it's going to be pretty rare to actually be using that Valor. It's not impossible though. There will be a few characters, and for the characters that are going to use it, it's only going to be good. It's not like there's no case where this is worse for anybody. So it's certainly a good change to make. But like, my take on it is like the relevant time to uncap Valor for like to hit 10 times more people and also have almost all of the people that are affected be affected positively would be like one of the weeks when we have like a 4,000 Valor cap, 4,750. Like those are the weeks where I have personally run into the Valor cap and been annoyed by it. Whereas at this point, it's like I don't have any characters or know of any characters personally that are chafing against the 8,250.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for stuff. I think that what they said here is the thing that I want to give basically my opinion on. Is like, as before, we like how early in the season these caps reduce the feeling of left behind for many players. So when it comes to Mythic Plus and PvP gearing, this is actually a very interesting dynamic of what they're kind of pushing. They're pushing players to only be able to upgrade, 1 or 2 pieces of gear during effectively like this point, because it costs a lot of Valor, especially if you don't have the dungeons done. Like, say you get the piece of gear from like a 15 or a 16 as opposed to getting it from a 20, the amount of Valor that it actually costs to upgrade that piece of gear, and God forbid it's like a weapon that you're trying to upgrade, is very, very difficult. So you have to make like a binding decision with what you are spending your Valor on. I think I don't know how I feel about this. I think I've seen both perspectives really displayed. More often than not, in like the circles that Dratnos and I run in, the perspective is like, oh, I wish that Valor was uncapped from the very beginning of the season. But at the same point, I also do understand how that's just like a slippery slope for most players that aren't playing the game, 12 hours a day or something like that.
I mean, I think that it would be a bad thing to do for the first month or so because of the incentive it creates to play for 12 hours a day to fully gear up, and the incentive it creates to focus on Mythic Plus grinding to the exclusion of all other content, which I do think that it's a very reasonable cap to exist for that long. I just think that like sometime between the first and the third month, it kind of becomes irrelevant whether or not you remove this cap for almost all cases. I think also this season, Valor has been a little bit less of a limiting resource because fewer people have invested the really expensive two-handed weapon upgrade cost of Valor because many more people have just crafted two-handers. So that has alleviated some of the need for Valor. But
I agree.
I think the point you made that like the upgrade cost is way more intensive if you're upgrading from a lower base item level is a really good one. And I actually would propose a system that fixed that. So something like, back in the day, back in my day, there was like Valor and Justice points, and I think it would be cool to do like an uncapped Justice points that could upgrade something up to 402 or 405 or whatever, and then a capped Valor point system that upgraded from 405 to 415, and that way you didn't have to like run into this cap and feel really bad about like I got my bis item, but it's 6 item levels lower than I could get out of a 20. Like I should really still farm this and get my capped Valor.
Another thing that I actually think they should probably be looking to do is make sure the Catalyst, uncapping Valor, and the Sparks of Creation being accessible from all content. I think that should honestly come out at the exact same time. I don't think that there's any reason to like, once one of those is unlocked, I think that at least if Blizzard is going to stick to their guns with the Catalyst specifically, if once one of those is unlocked, they can honestly just like open the floodgates with having all 3 of those unlocked at the same time.
Yeah, I think that like 6 weeks after the raid comes out point would be a good point to do the uncapping of Valor.
Yes.
I don't think you want to do Valor uncapping much earlier than that. I do think though that the Catalyst being a little bit earlier than that would be good. So.
The Catalyst, yeah, but I'm just talking about.
But if you want to hold
Catalyst cadence, yes, I'm just talking about if they hold to their guns. Which I mean, you and I have talked about it. I think the Catalyst should be a little bit earlier, but it is what it is. Okay, the last thing, and dude, holy shit, Realm Mythic. Realm Mythic, for those who don't know, has been gated behind the Hall of Fame being closed on both Alliance and Horde. Now, Blizzard is giving us a firm date, and this is before the Alliance Hall of Fame is even close to closing. Basically, within the weekly reset of each region on the week of February 14th, so Valentine's Day, we will enable cross-realm groups in Mythic difficulty for Vault of the Incarnates. This represents a shift in philosophy that has evolved over the last few raid tiers, where we've seen the pace at which the Hall of Fame is filled up for both factions become unaligned with the timing that we would have chosen for players at large, meaning that not 100 Alliance guilds are killing the final boss of the raid fast enough. We will still maintain a Hall of Fame for this and future raids, and to qualify for it in cross-realm groups, you must simply have 16 players from the same guild take part in this raid. I hate the follow-up. And I think that the longer we've had it, the less enjoyable I've had. Like, okay, so for PvP and for M+, you have like rank 1 titles. For the Hall of Fame, you do also have titles, but for some reason, it does not feel good. It's maybe just that like you and I are in positions where we get the Hall of Fame pretty consistently, but man, it is a pretty underwhelming feat, especially the Alliance Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so the Alliance Hall of Fame is in danger of just never filling up. I don't know. So right now, okay, the official Hall of Fame is a little bugged right now, and so it's not showing. Yeah. So here's the official one, but it hasn't been updating for the past couple of weeks. So there's actually 14 guilds.
Okay.
There's 14 Alliance guilds, and here's a Raider.io page that has all of them. But crucially, with the Chinese region disappearing, a lot of the guilds that got Alliance Hall of Fame in those positions, 20 through 100, no longer exist and aren't going to be showing up there. So if they hadn't taken this step, there is a chance that this would become the second Alliance Hall of Fame since like Unot to not make it to being all the way filled, which
man, I don't know. I think that they need to redo the Hall of Fame in some capacity. I honestly think the Hall of Fame could just be the top 100 guilds. Like the Hall of Fame realistically could just be the top 100 guilds. It doesn't necessarily have to be this like faction specific thing. That would be at least slightly more interesting to me.
Yeah, initially it was created in a world before cross-faction rating existed.
Yes.
As a like incentive to even out the factions, right? Because like if there's this prestigious reward and there's 100 per faction, then naturally there's some pressure to go to the easier faction to get into that top 100, right? Like if Alliance is empty, then hey, any cutting edge guild could be a Hall of Fame guild on Alliance, right? Like that is compelling. But I agree that in a world of cross-faction rating, it's kind of lost that purpose. So that being said, I do still think Hall of Fame as like an extra prestige tier above Cutting Edge. It does seem cool. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's bad. Like, I definitely don't want this to come off as complaining, but it's definitely not something as prestigious as like the time that you put in, because like for getting rank 1 title for M+, I actually feel like, damn, this was justified. I actually feel pretty good about getting the title. I'm sure PvPers feel the exact same way with how their titles go out, because you see every single season, like they're right up against the cut of trying to get that rank 1 title for the cutoff. You watch streams of them season in, season out. I do think that this is very interesting at the very bottom. With future raids, we're looking for a more scheduled approach with cross-realm mythic difficulties becoming available, and we want to keep our options open for the timing to vary, since we don't know yet circumstances we might observe in the future. And I actually think this is super, because not every season is made equal, and if you have it set like, okay, so Sepulchre, hardest raid tier we've ever seen, having a set schedule before the raid comes out doesn't really make sense, because you can give a little bit more buffer time before cross-realm needs to be enabled.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's kind of not a huge downside to Cross-Realm Mythic coming out, except for in the first few weeks where it's like, okay, maybe this leads to more degenerate Race to World First stuff or something. Maybe this leads to like cross-faction, cross-realm splits of some kind in both Race to World First and just like for wealthy non-Race to World First guilds, maybe. But even that seems like a pretty big stretch to be like a super big thing. So I tend to land on the side of like, just put it cross faction as early as, you know, a month in or something, and I don't see what the real downside would be of that, because like it's not like pugging the first few bosses is particularly easy that early anyways, right? Because like that's when we're all under geared and stuff. Like, so I don't know.
And there's already there's a natural and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but I do think that like this timing that they're saying here is actually nice. It's nice that they're doing this, and this is unlike to me at least, unlike the Chaos and the Valor. This is like earlier than I would have expected them to be making this change in the season.
I will say overall though, these things are pretty good, and I think that what they're saying here with the cross realm stuff is fairly solid. For Conquest and Valor, what would you change? Just maybe like you said a little bit earlier.
Yeah, my big suggestion is the different an uncapped currency to bring you up to the highest you can get from end of dungeon. But yeah, if I wasn't doing that, I think it would be good to uncap Valor maybe start of January rather than start of February.
Okay. And then the last thing, Primal Chaos, and then like the focuses. I've seen some people talk about like why Primal focuses should and shouldn't be like an option for you to send to your characters, because some people, and I think that Blizzard may actually believe this as well, we don't know for certain, but I think it's likely, they don't want you to be able to transfer the focuses from your main to like your alt, because they don't want you to like show up in 418 crafted gear immediately. Now there is a gold barrier to that, and like a pretty steep one. Like what are your thoughts on like being able to transfer Primal Chaos, because you're able to craft, what is it, up to like 395s, 392s?
Yeah, I definitely understand them not wanting the best way to gear a new alt being to play on your main and send materials to your alts. I think it's reasonable to want to police against that. But I do think the angst of like, oh, I've hit my character max level, you know, there are now 50 concentrated primal focus in my future and like plus 16 spams if I want to get these 418s. Like, I do understand the angst there, and part of that is, you know, self-created of like people feeling like they need something that they maybe don't actually like need, because, you know, the first two are the embellished ones and the later ones have diminishing returns, and by the time you can get to them, you probably can get 405s and stuff from your end of dungeon stuff maybe, or from your heroic raid or something like that. So that part, sense. I think a little bit of give from Blizzard and a little bit of a chill from the community would probably be in order.
Yeah, it just kind of sucks whenever you look at your main. Like, if I feel like in my main right now, I have 3,000 Primal Chaos and then like 85 focuses or some shit like that, and you're like,
something to spend your focuses on your main once you are over could be a cool like that, because it's a two-sided problem, right? The problem is you have something on your main that you want on your alt.
Yes.
Right? But if you didn't have it on your main because you could spend it usefully on your main as well, then maybe that would solve some of this like psychological problem as well. So maybe just like, I don't know, cosmetics that you can buy with 30 concentrated primal focus or something like that.
Actually, I would make that. That's actually a really smart idea. I think that some kind of currency, like using them for something, would actually be pretty reasonable. Could come through the trading post.
Could do all the trading posts.
Probably not.
Pretty different type of system, but could be.
Trade post is a very different type of system, but like, I don't know.
It does have trading in the name, so maybe, yeah.
Could be
a vibe.
All right. That's gonna be it. It was actually a pretty good week for news in regards to stuff that's happening. It's gonna make the game a lot more playable for all. It's gonna make the game a lot more playable for characters that are looking to gear up a little bit faster, especially once it's like your second character and whatnot.
Going to make it easier to do some cross-realm mercenary work as well. If anybody wants a Broodkeeper skip, whisper Dratnos XD of Tichondrius, 10k, and I will come open the Broodkeeper skip in your lockout. So you got to get me on Tuesday before my raid, though. You got to get me before I'm saved. So yeah. All right. We'll see you guys in the next video.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.